Welcome back to the Morgan Thomas Show with Big Al. And joining me at this post-show interview is Alex from the Gridiron Expert over on YouTube channel. Thank you so much, Alex, for joining me.
Hey, Morgan, thanks for having me.
Well, I'm excited because I'm a big fan of yours. I love watching everything. If you haven't already gone over to the Gridiron Expert and you're watching this right now, just stop. I'll put it in the description. Check out the link in the description and go subscribe to his channel. Awesome stuff. Great insight on just about every single team. I don't know how he has the time to do it, but Alex, so you mentioned you're kind of you're a student right now at Arkansas State. Before this interview, you mentioned that to me. So how awesome was it to see that win this weekend?
Oh man, it was really unbelievable. I was lucky enough to actually be there for the game, had all the media access up in the press box and the photo deck and everything. And, you know, the talk around campus and even a couple analysts across the nation was, this game had the potential to be close. It had the potential to be a close game, but I don't think anybody really was going to pull the trigger and give Arkansas State that win. So to see them battle back from 14 down in the second quarter and end up winning that game in the final minutes, I've never seen a stadium clear out faster than Kansas State did on Saturday afternoon.
Oh man, well, come down here to South Carolina and watch Clemson, South Carolina. Maybe you'll see a stadium clear out. I know Clemson fans will love to hear that, but that was obviously a big surprise for a lot of people. The Big 12, they were part of the initiative to keep college football going, which I know you and I are really excited to actually have something to talk about this year and have games being played. They were part of that. And then they actually had a couple of upsets there. We kind of joked this Monday that the Big 12 might be thinking of ending because of their poor showing. But I mean, so what do you think? Do you think that the Big 12, this is kind of just one of those things that because of the entire situation that they a couple of teams stubbed their toe?
Well, I think obviously we're seeing this a lot among college football teams now is a lot of these teams haven't had the time to prepare during the spring. They didn't have the time to prepare in the fall. All these practices. So you're playing a game in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic with very little to no preparation. Now Iowa State, for example, out of the Big 12, they always struggle in their season openers. Even last year, they placed Northern Iowa and went to triple overtime against them. That's not acceptable. Kansas, I think everybody was surprised by Kansas losing to Coastal Carolina. I'm not sure why they were surprised by that. They lost by 5 to to Coastal last year. This year they lost by, I believe it was 15. So with all the losses that Kansas had, I'm not sure why it was a big shock. So I think Iowa State and Kansas State were the two biggest surprises within the Big 12. And I think you're going to see more teams like that, not just necessarily in the Big 12, but ACC teams that have maybe yet to play, or SEC teams especially. They're kicking off conference play on the 26th. You're going to see some teams struggle out of the gate just because they've had not really enough time to prepare for it.
It is kind of weird to really think about teams, 2 weeks from now because the SEC is still kind of waiting to play. Has that hurt you at all or kind of been an obstacle for you in ranking teams? Because for me, when I look at ranking teams, I'm like, I'm going to rank this team because I assume Alabama's good or I assume Florida's going to be good. I don't really have proof of it yet. And a lot of these teams that are playing now, I'm starting to kind of scratch my head. Whoa, maybe they're not as good as I really thought.
Right. I mean, you're exactly right on that. And the biggest thing for the teams that have yet to play, you solely have to base it off of the returning talent, how they fared last year. And then I think you kind of have to look at their schedule a little bit as well. But you're right. Once they start playing in 2 weeks, you're going to really get a great, idea of what this team is like. And then, to play devil's advocate as well, you could have a team like Iowa State, for example, Kansas State, or an SEC team that could struggle. They don't look good in week one. All right, give them one more week and see what they're like. Because again, anytime you have that season opening game, teams usually come out a little bit rusty. So, but to answer your question, when it comes to the rankings, yeah, it has been a little bit difficult because you just look at the AP poll, the most recent one. You have 6 of the top 10 teams right now are within the SEC. You've got a team like Louisiana, who's number 19 in the country, who under normal circumstances, they would never be that high in the rankings. So the Big 10 and the Pac-12 are mostly responsible for Louisiana being ranked so high. But it's just a very weird situation right now, but something that I think will get cleared up by the middle of October.
And 2 teams that I wanted to get your opinion on were first Notre Dame. These are ACC teams. So first Notre Dame, the guys and I on the show said that The spread was like 21, I believe, and last year they beat Duke by 20. And so I said, well, with Chase Bryce, obviously a guy who was a backup quarterback at Clemson and a guy who kept Clemson in one of the games that was close that year, I would say that Chase Bryce was going to keep them, keep the score within the spread, and he did. So, and both teams were going 3-and-out, 3-and-out, 3-and-out. Now I'm seeing afterwards that a lot of Notre Dame fans, a lot of people on Twitter saying, even College Football News saying that Notre Dame is going to rebound, and now they do play South Florida next week or this weekend, but Notre Dame's going to rebound and be that top 10 team. I have been skeptical of Notre Dame for the past couple of months now. When you really look at it, I mean, thankfully they have a running back that's kind of showing up. But other than that, it's Ian Book, and that's it. I mean, Ian Book by himself. And I just don't know if a top 10 team can really, make it that far, with just one person as their go-to person for passing and for running, because Ian Book does it both.
No, you're exactly right. It's funny. I was just talking to another analyst the other day, and he was like, Notre Dame's that team that's always overrated. They're consistently a top 10 team, and yet they're never able to take down the top dogs, whether that's in a college football playoff game or a big season game, or even in a New Year's Six caliber bowl game. And you're right. I think, Notre Dame going into the season, before they moved to the ACC and even now, they were going to go through some growing pains, because you're right. They lost so many of their top wide receivers. You lose, obviously, Cole Kmet first at tight end. You lose Chase Claypool. You lose Chris Fink. Ian Book coming back to South Bend was huge, because if you don't have him, they're nowhere near a top 10 team this season. The defense is what's going to have to carry Notre Dame this season. I mean, really it is. You've got, as you mentioned, Kyron Williams, who kind of burst onto the scene against Duke, had 112 yards and a touchdown, I believe, and another 90 reception yards, I think. So, that dynamic duo of Book and Williams is going to have to carry this offense until Book can build some chemistry with this new core of wide receivers. So, to stay Notre Dame's playoff contenders right now, for some people, I would disagree. I think you're really going to get a good idea of how Notre Dame is across the board, how sound they are as they get deeper into conference play.
Yeah, and conference play meaning Clemson for sure. Another rival to Clemson going into this year, before we get into the Tigers, which is the main reason I wanted to get you on, but Florida State, is it that bad? My first thing was, I had people on Twitter say, well, Morgan, Jeff Sims is really good, and he's going to take it to Clemson, and he's going to push Clemson to the max. And I'm going to say Jeff Sims is good. It was kind of ironic that a commit for Florida State decommitted, then wins the job, and then goes into Tallahassee and beats them. That was very unfortunate if you're a Florida State fan. But I don't think that it's as much as Georgia Tech has arrived and is ready to challenge Clemson. And I know they didn't say challenge Clemson, but they did say they were going to stress out Clemson more than originally thought. I don't think it's as much that as it is Florida State is really, really in kind of disarray, I guess you could say. Just all the off the field controversy and Mike Norvell coming in trying to fix things that were already been broken over multiple years. It's a difficult situation for anybody to step into. I was assuming Norvell was going to have a more explosive offense than that. What was your thoughts?
Well, you kind of stole the words right out of my mouth. Willie Taggart left Florida State in shambles. He took over for Jimbo Fisher, and when they first announced Willie Taggart was going to become the head coach at Florida State, I was appalled. I thought that was a horrible hire from the get-go, and he proved me right. So he has really taken what was once a very proud program and put them at a very, very low level that Mike Norvell has to dig them out of. I am with you that I thought the offense would play a little bit better in that season opener. And if you look at the game, they did. They started off fast. The defense was on fire. You had 2 blocked field goals. You had 2 interceptions deep in the red zone. Florida State scored a touchdown on their first possession. They had that 10-point lead going into halftime. So all of that being said, Florida State looked solid. The problem was, to me, and I don't know if it's coaching or if it's simply just the players, so many drop passes and so many missed tackles in that game. I think the fundamentals within the Seminoles program right now, they're just not there. I don't know if they're not being taught. I don't know if the players aren't buying into the system. Again, it is just the first game under a brand new head coach with limited preparation time. But I am with you. I think all the credit in the world to Georgia Tech for a comeback, for overcoming all of those mistakes and being able to win on the road like that. But I think, like you said, it's more of Florida State being in a bad spot more so than it is Georgia Tech. Really increasing and getting better. A lot of people think that Georgia Tech somehow now going to beat Central Florida this upcoming Saturday. And I'm in strong disagreement with that. I think we're really pushing the button. I think we're going a little too far by thinking you can beat Florida State and then all of a sudden you're going to beat a top 15 team. You're not even close.
Well, and that's what I said to this guy on Twitter. I was like, you got to be careful because, don't crown Heismans on week one. And, some of the big media groups like to do that. Some of the big guys out there like to have a big game week one and then say, whoa, this was guys on my Heisman watch. I'm like, well, for example, don't want to talk about it, but for example, Marshall, what is Grant Wells? He did great, but it was Eastern Kentucky. So let's be careful with, what we talk about or how awesome we think this person is. Let's see what they can do against better competition. But you can't knock how well they did. Just get out on the field and do that is something that, you can't take for granted. Going into Clemson Tigers and, the defending, runners up to the national champion, LSU Tigers. Unfortunately, Clemson, wasn't able to meet the challenge of the LSU Tigers in New Orleans this past year. But it was a great season overall. Clemson, still has Trevor Lawrence, still has Travis Etienne, is rebuilding the offensive line. But a lot of those guys are not just true freshmen. They've been there. They've kind of studied a little bit. Still got a really good left tackle, but had to overcome losing T. Higgins, losing now Justin Ross to injury. But Trevor Lawrence came out and not many big explosive plays against Wake Forest, but just very consistent 10, 12, 10, 12, 10, 12, sometimes 15, really no deep balls. So do you think that Clemson, can still make it all the way to the national championship game without having that, big explosive over the top wide receiver? Because a lot of fans are kind of calling me, asking me, what's going on? They underwhelmed. I said, well, you can't really say they underwhelmed. Trevor Lawrence threw for 350 or 51 yards. So, I guess it's more underwhelmed when you compare. So what's your thoughts?
Well, I fully agree first that Clemson can make it all the way back to the national championship game. I know they are the number one team in the country. They're the number one team in the country for a reason. Between week one and week two, out of all the teams I've watched, and I think I've watched just about every single one, Clemson looked like the most complete team in the country. They were the one team to me that didn't really seem they had that much rust on them. It didn't seem that they were trying to really overcome so many mistakes. For some, a 24-point victory over Wake Forest would seem underwhelming, but you were up 37-3 going into that fourth quarter. Garbage time points for the Demon Deacons there. Trevor Lawrence, fantastic performance. Your wide receiver problem, as you mentioned, obviously you lose T. Higgins, and losing Justin Ross in the offseason was huge and devastating. But even when that happened, I remember telling some people, I said, Clemson's going to be just fine. You still have Amari Rodgers. You still have Joseph Nagata. It's an opportunity for these younger guys that, as you said, aren't necessarily freshmen. These are guys that have playing experience, maybe just not as much as they have in years past. Clemson, to me, has always been a team that doesn't have to rebuild like some elite teams do. They just continue to reload. They're always stacked with so much talent on both sides of the ball. So I think this was a great opportunity for Trevor Lawrence to come out there, feel out an opposing defense, first time hitting the field since that national championship loss. And I thought they looked very, very complete. Absolutely national title contenders.
And what's your thoughts on Brent Venables? Now, I know he used to be an Oklahoma guy, so he's kind of more out there where you were. You got to see him over there, in the Midwest there. So now that he's been with Clemson for a long time, and a lot of rumors now coming out that he might be the first to leave because he's just so doggone good. He seems to continually improve while continually losing top talent to first round in the NFL. And against Wake Forest, he did something that completely shocked me. So last year, they originally had a 4-3 alignment. And last year kind of switched to a 3-3-5 and let Isaiah Simmons basically run wild everywhere. Now, Isaiah Simmons is gone. And so a lot of people said, well, they got these big-time freshmen, 5-star guys in here. They're going to go back to a traditional 4-3. Well, they did, and they did it. They used a 4-3. They used a 3-4. They even came out in a 2-4, 5 or something. It was crazy. They came out in a 3-3-5, a 3-2-6. Literally, Brent Venables is asking this group of guys, group of young men, to come out and align in all different kind of situations, depending on the down, the distance, the formation. Is this real? Like, someone on the outside of Clemson looking in, what are your thoughts on that? Is there any other team that does that, or is it Clemson like the lone wolf in that category?
Well, to my knowledge, they are the only one that does something like that. That's so multiple defensively. Not many teams do that. They kind of stick to their guns on their alignments, whether it's 4-3 or 3-4. And I know Syracuse right now is they're running their own 3-3-5, which didn't work out too well against North Carolina. Story for another time. But I admire what Brent Venables is trying to do, because I honestly think that is what separates the men from the boys here. Is you're taking a defense that we knew coming into this season was going to be more heavy and more elite on the front seven than maybe in that secondary, maybe than what we've seen in years past. We knew the defensive line, that linebacking core, was going to be the strength for Clemson's defense. So I think Brent Venables is trying to play to his strengths here. And like you mentioned, depending on the down, depending on the offensive personnel, quickly shifting and arranging that defensive scheme to prepare for what's ahead of them. And honestly, against some of the teams they're going to face in the following weeks, no team's going to be able to stop that. There are only a handful of teams in the ACC that might be able to figure out those multiple schemes and give Clemson a run for their money.
All right, so last bit before I let you go. Who's the biggest challenger for Clemson this season now that Ohio State is not there? Well, I say not there, but pending something happening this week, or all the rumors being true. But as of right now, with the teams that we know are confirmed to play, who's Clemson's biggest challenger?
When you're looking on the national stage, I think you have, and it's a cliche answer, I think it has to be Alabama. I really do. I don't think Oklahoma, who's number 3 in the country right now, I don't think Oklahoma has the defensive firepower and the defensive talent to shut down Trevor Lawrence and this offense, Travis Etienne, Amari Rodgers, et cetera. I don't think Oklahoma, and we've seen that in Oklahoma's previous playoff appearances. Georgia is one team that I think, had they kept Jamie Newman, had he chosen not to opt out, had JT Daniels won the starting job, he didn't even win starting job here, maybe Georgia could give them a run, because Georgia might have the number 1 defense in the country this season. But you look at Alabama, I think a lot of people are skeptical of Mac Jones. I really don't think that he's going to be as bad as people think. Plenty of playing experience down the stretch when Tua was hurt. You've got still a very solid wide receiver core, solid running backs. And Nick Saban's defense, guys, was not very characteristic that he's usually seen last year. A lot of injuries, a lot of guys just not playing to their full potential. This year, that defense is going to be back. And I think Alabama, with Georgia maybe not being as good as we thought, might be a lock to win the SEC title, in which case I think would set up a Clemson-Alabama national championship.
Yeah, I agree. I think Alabama, I originally was high on Georgia, but Jamie Newman, I was looking forward to seeing what he would do. A lot of rumors that he might not win the position, and that would have been very unfortunate. And maybe some things were going on. We don't know what was happening and why he wanted to opt out, but that's his decision for sure. I like Florida a little bit too. But yeah, definitely Alabama has got to be right back up there as well. But yeah, again, thank you so much for joining me, Alex. I appreciate it. I look forward to watching more of the content that you put out over on the Gridiron Expert. Now, tell our fans and viewers over here in South Carolina and the Southeast where they can follow you and kind of like how they can keep up with you throughout the week.
Yeah, we have so many different ways, guys, to keep up with us. Obviously, the YouTube channel, as Morgan has mentioned, the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. We've got a video coming out just about every single day of the week. Rankings analysis, weekly predictions, game of the week analysis, weekly recaps, you name it, we've got it. We also have our website, thegridironexpert.com. We have a weekly newsletter we send out there. We put out our Against the Spread picks on our website. It's $30 for the entire year, and we beat out over 80% of the national experts in 2019. So it's the cheapest price you're going to find anywhere, and some of the best picks you're going to get anywhere. And then, of course, our social media pages. Twitter is a big one for us, at Gridiron Expert, and then Instagram as well. We're very active over there, which is also at Gridiron Expert as well. So go drop us a follow, subscribe, sign up on our website. We'd love to have you join our team and continue to discuss and bring you guys some of the best college football analysis out there.
Awesome. Thanks again, Alex, for joining me, and look forward to it.
Hey, Morgan, thank you so much.